Apartment in the heart of the Fairfax district on Curson Avenue. Built in the early 1900s, it featured an expansive living room with beautiful light that poured in at all times of day, and a balcony with French doors and seating for two, complete with a balcony with purple flowering sycamore treetops that line the street. And the topper, my 85-year-old Chinese landlord, Mr. Liu, who had a striking resemblance to Mr. Magoo, who either didn't know or didn't care that the rent we were paying, the $900 in rent, was nearly half of the market rate. If there was a Sopranos-type hit list for people with killer deals on sweet apartments, I'm sure I was on it. Not only was it the best apartment, but it was in the best neighborhood, walking distance from everything and everyone, including 8 of my good friends at any given time. And then one day, after 8 years, it happened. A notice on my door. Chez Curson was being sold, and I was given the boot. My first reaction was to drop to my knees and yell up to the sky, "No! Why? But after a brief moment, clear as day, I was given the answer. This was a sign. You see, I was 35 and feeling stuck in my life. Same things, same people, same places. So I would not lament the end, but rather see it for what it was, a new beginning. This was my sign to go. I grew up with a very codependent mother, an amazing mom, but nevertheless codependent to the core. She met my dad at 17, married him at 19, and for the rest of her life until my father died, she did what he did and went where he went. So I realized about age 13 that I wanted my life to be different. I wanted to be independent. It motivated me. But some familiar habits are hard to break, and at age 20 I found myself living with my boyfriend, 6 years my senior, who declared one night that he wanted to marry me after graduation. Every fiber in my being yelled out, "No!" and something in me shifted that night. I had to decide right there and then what kind of woman I wanted to be. Did I want to be the kind who gets married right after college, or the kind who goes off and has adventures on her own? Well, within weeks I signed up to study abroad and left the country. I always loved traveling. I started as a teenager, but it was always with a group, or for a school or for work. It was traveling with a safety net. I'd always admired those girls who traveled alone, and I wanted to be one of them. A girl who didn't need a man or a friend or a plan or a safety net. But for various reasons, time, money, work, my fabulous apartment, it never happened. And now I was literally being pushed out of my home and my comfort zone and given a check for $10,000 to do so. So, a solo adventure to the unknown was my only plan. All I knew was that I wanted to go make use of my 5 years of high school and college Spanish by going to a Spanish-speaking country and avoid at all costs being a tourist. Peru. Yes, I would climb Machu Picchu, trek through the rainforest, live with the locals, in a small town. It was a developing nation. Let's just get this straight. This was no vacation. I wanted a challenge. I wanted to struggle. This was, as my friend Alan named it, my vision quest. Yeah, vision quest. I like it. That is until my friend Greg just had to tell me about this American girl he knew who got raped on the back of a bus in Peru. Thanks, Greg. So a few days before taking off, I changed my plans and booked a ticket to Costa Rica. Still Spanish-speaking, still rainforest, still a developing nation, plus peaceful. No army, no war. Yes, I could still have my vision quest in Costa Rica. But as a single woman traveling alone, I thought I should be smart and learn some self-defense. So I called Chris. Chris was an ex of mine. We met in Oxford doing Shakespeare. He had thick, dark, wavy hair, a body crafted to perfection, and this deep, charcoal-y voice that made me swoon every time he said darling. He was a dark, intense, ex-drug addict, Bush-supporting Christian Scientist from New York City, and I was a light, bubbly, occasional pot-smoking, Clinton-supporting Jewish liberal from Los Angeles. We were all wrong for each other, except for the fact that we were in love. Chris had recently moved to Los Angeles and had a black belt in capoeira. So if anything happened to me, I figured he could teach me how to dance my way out of it. I drove out to the valley and met him in the garage of his apartment building. This was so Karate Kid. Attraction aside, we were taking this thing seriously. He wrapped his arms around me tightly while I tried to break free from his hold. Oh, this isn't so bad. Focus, Michelle. He even taught me how to kick my attacker in the kneecaps and how to shove my hand up his nose, breaking it in one swift motion. I'm ready, Sensei. I knew that if I was grabbed and attacked in the exact same manner that Chris had grabbed me, I could definitely break free. Either that or have a really good makeout session. So, with my backpack, Lonely Planet Guide, and superhero defense move, I set off for Costa Rica. I had arranged to stay with a local family in a small town called Orosi Valley, one of the oldest communities in Costa Rica. I would study Spanish in the morning and wander around the area practicing my Spanish with the locals the rest of the day. After that, I would set off on my own for another month of traveling. No plans except for to say yes to whatever came my way. And what came my way was a red-headed Dutch man who had landed in the same town a day prior. There were only 3 students at the Spanish school, each in our own class, the third being a know-it-all, extremely annoying Dutch girl. So the redhead and I quickly ditched her and bonded. We spent our days with my family or his family, having adventures. Now, meeting a guy was the last thing on my mind. I was on my vision quest. But there he was, practically landed right in my lap. And we got along with ease, and hey, it never hurts to have another friend. So maybe my vision quest had room for a +1. We decided we would travel together, and if we liked it, we would, and if not, we would go our own way. So we bid farewell to our families and set off for our travels. And as it turned out, we did like traveling together, which also meant sleeping together. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Your vision quest is quickly morphing into a Harlequin romance novel. But rest assured, it was more like Romancing the Stone. Every day was filled with adventures of the unknown, which included a 9-hour hike on a secluded beach with a shortage of food where we had to cross alligator-filled waters and getting lost in the dark in the rainforest after this 9-hour trek, and getting into the back of a stranger's pickup truck in the middle of the night so we could sleep in his barn after realizing the ferry we were on to our next destination would arrive well after any place for room for the night was open. And of course, there was this next adventure. After returning from our journey to the rainforest, we were ready for some downtime, so we went to stay with the cousins of my new Costa Rican family. They lived in Cartago, which was a small town, and on the outskirts of the small town was a mall with a movie theater. Now, a trip to the mall, was it part of my vision quest? Definitely not. But after my new hiking shoes gave me terrible blisters all over my feet, I was desperate for a new pair. Plus, I will not lie, there was something about sitting in a dark movie theater watching Johnny Depp in Pirates of the Caribbean have the adventure while I took the night off, which seemed rather comforting. So my Dutch companion and the 2 Costa Ricans set off on a bus to the outskirts of town. Now, prior to leaving the house, the mama of our house made sure to tell us, "Cuidado, be careful, hide your valuables." Apparently, there was a lot of crime in that area. Our trip to the mall was a success. A new pair of hiking shoes and an ATM machine that finally worked, so I made sure to take out my cash limit. We walked to the bus stop across the road and down a bit from the mall and waited. It was dark, there were no street lights, and it was completely desolate. As we waited for the bus, I realized that my money pouch, now bulky from all the cash, not to mention credit cards and passport, could now be seen under my shirt. Note to all you female travelers: cute, sexy girl shirts, too tight for hiding money pouches. So I took it off and I asked the Dutchman to wear it for me. And as I was handing it over, I spotted them. 4 teenage Costa Ricans. Oh, I guess they were coming to wait for the bus too. Not exactly. Like a flock of vultures, they circled us, caging us in. The ringleader, a little guy, shoved something into the Costa Rican's back and whispered in his ear. He quickly took off his watch and handed it over to him, and then his wallet. And the Costa Rican woman followed suit, with no resistance. I looked on in confusion. What's happening? Then the one next to the Dutchman took my money pouch from him without a fight, while the tallest one, who stood by me, violently pulled the bag with the shoes in it, ripping it off my shoulders. "Hey!" I said, pushing him. He pushed me back. As I looked around at the other 3, my anger started to rise. There were 4 of them and 4 of us. Why are we just letting them rob us? And why am I the only one who seems to show any resistance? I looked around at these boys, who couldn't have been more than 15 or 16, and thought, hold up, oh no, you're not that tough. You see, I just spent a year working at a juvenile detention camp for teenage boys. Those boys were tough. They were gang members, convicted of crimes, baby daddies. If I can handle those guys, thank you. If I can handle those guys, I can handle these guys. There's no way I am getting robbed by a bunch of Costa Rican juvenile delinquents. The fear on the faces of my 3 companions, coupled with their lack of protest, caused my rage to grow with intensity. And suddenly, with our goods in tow, the little one turned to leave and the others followed. And then I saw it. Nothing. He didn't have a knife or a gun or anything stuck in the Costa Rican's back. And that was my cue. Filled with rage and adrenaline, I charged after the Costa Rican teenage gang, and for the first time since arriving in Costa Rica, gave myself permission to throw my Spanish out the window as I yelled in perfect English in the ringleader's face, "Give it back, motherfucker!" My body shook. I didn't care about the money or even the brand new hiking shoes, but fuck me if I was going to ruin my vision quest by this little fucker stealing my passport, credit cards, and ATM card. If there was one thing I learned since arriving in Costa Rica, it's that everyone here runs on Tican time. The national catchphrases uttered by every Tico I met were "Pura vida" and "No preocupada," which literally translates to "This is the life and don't worry." But which really meant was "Relax and chill the fuck out. We take our time here. This isn't the US." Well, I was totally down for waiting for a boat or some lunch. What I was not down with was waiting at a government office for hours, only to be told that I wouldn't be able to get my passport for another few weeks or months. Well, apparently my intensity scared the shit out of the ringleader, because he handed me back my money pouch with my passport and credit cards inside. I walked away victorious. So maybe I didn't go all capoeira on that guy's ass. I didn't break his knees. I didn't break his nose. But I defended myself, and I did it on my own. I spent the next month traveling with a Dutchman, so I never really got to travel alone. But looking back, I was the one who rescued us from the dark rainforest. I was the one who found us a barn to stay in for the night, and I was the one who defended myself when we were mugged. I may not have been alone, but after that trip, I knew I was one of those women that I'd always wanted to be. And I didn't need Chris or the Dutchman or anyone else to be my hero. I was the hero of my own vision quest. And as it turns out, everything I needed on my vision quest, I already had inside of me. Oh, and if you're wondering what happened to the Dutchman, I ended up marrying him, and we've had many more adventures. Wait for it. Hey, even Batman has a sidekick.